What does your mechanic mean when he tells you that you have a bad oxygen sensor, and what are some of the signs and symptoms that you will notice on your car when you have a bad oxygen sensor? So the oxygen sensor is going to work similarly to what we had with the mass airflow sensor, or rather they work together. And all that this sensor is doing is trying to make sure that you're getting the right air fuel ratio burning in your car, and that makes sure that your car is running at peak efficiency, giving you the best power from your engine and also the best fuel consumption. So basically, just like the mass airflow sensor, the oxygen sensor is there to pick up how much oxygen has remained in the exhaust gas after combustion has happened. So after the mass airflow sensor passes information to your computer box about how much air is coming in, and your combustion cycle happens, the oxygen sensor is there to detect how much oxygen was left as the engine has burnt the fuel inside your car. And basically, with that information going back to your computer box, it's able to tell whether your injectors need to be adjusted to add more fuel because it has noticed that you're running lean if there's a lot more oxygen in the exhaust, or it's there to tell the injectors to bring in less fuel because it's running rich and there's very little oxygen that is going through your exhaust system. So this just works hand in hand with your mass airflow sensor to make sure that you're getting the right amount of fuel inside your engine to burn efficiently. So then the question is, where in your car is the oxygen sensor located? So the oxygen sensor will always be located on the exhaust side of your engine. So on some cars, it will be right on the exhaust manifold before the catalytic converter. And on some cars, it will be after the catalytic converter. And the thing about oxygen sensors is that with different makes and models, you get some cars that will have one oxygen sensor, while other cars will have two, and some might even have three oxygen sensors. So it just depends on which car you have. But generally, the oxygen sensor will be found along the exhaust system of your car, and they will most of the time look just like this. So it will be easy to spot where they are located because it will be along your exhaust system, and it pretty much looks like this. So now that we know what your oxygen sensor does and where it's located, let's see what are the signs and symptoms that you have a bad oxygen sensor. And just like I said, this sensor works together with the mass airflow sensor, so your symptoms will be similar, if not just the same. So the first way that you're going to be able to tell that you have a bad oxygen sensor is it's going to give you a check engine light on your dashboard. And then when you plug into a diagnosis machine, it will easily scan the system and tell you that your oxygen sensor is bad. And depending on the type of engine that you have, you will get, error codes that will say bank 1 or bank 2. And that basically means that, if it's a V6, then bank 1 would be whichever side has cylinder number 1, and bank 2 is the side that has the other cylinders. But from using a diagnosis machine, it will be very easy to tell which oxygen sensor is bad and where it is located. Your engine will get misfires because the air fuel mixture that is going into the engine is not the correct one. If this sensor is sending the wrong information, your injectors might end up adding more fuel when they're not supposed to add more fuel, or the injectors might be adding less fuel than it is supposed to. So that will cause things like misfires. Your car might be rough idling, and also at the end of the day, because this helps to give you a good fuel consumption, you will experience bad fuel consumption if the oxygen sensor in your car goes bad. A very common question about oxygen sensors is, can you clean an oxygen sensor? And that is a simple yes and no situation. Oxygen sensors have an average life of about 150,000 kilometers before they start to give you issues. But also depending on how your car has been running, if it's been running rich for a very long time, or it hasn't been heating up enough, because these things have to be running at optimum temperature for them to work efficiently. They might get things like a lot of carbon buildup, which might make it difficult for you to just clean it and have this thing work correctly. So depending on the condition of your O2 sensor, you can clean it, but in some cases, it doesn't matter what you do. You can put this in, dishwashing liquid and all these funny things that people do to clean these things. But if it's time for it to go, it's just time for it to go. So whether or not you can clean it just depends on the condition of the oxygen sensor. So after 150,000 kilometers, it's better you just go ahead and replace this to know that it's working at peak efficiency. All right, that was just a basic video about oxygen sensors. So it basically works with the mass airflow sensor to make sure that you're getting the perfect air fuel mix. There is a bit more complicated information, but we like to keep it simple here. And of course, if I left out anything else, you guys can leave it in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next video.